Mistress of All Evil, A Tale of the Dark Fairy by Serena Valentino. Copyright 2009, Disney Enterprises Incorporated, published by Disney Press. Chapter 6, The Witch's Daughter. Queen Snow White woke in terror. It was the same old nightmare. She was running through a tangled forest with grasping trees scratching her as she fought to escape their clutches. She almost expected to be covered in cuts, but found herself unharmed. "Mama?" Snow looked for her mother's reflection in the mirror on her bedside table. "Are you there?" But the old queen didn't answer. Snow looked around her room at the other reflective surfaces. She found nothing other than her own pale face. It was a strange feeling, waking up without her mother smiling back at her from one of the mirrors. Snow glanced around her room, at her things, trying to shake off the terrible feeling of her dream. Everything was in its place. There was nothing strange or amiss, as there normally would be when she thought she'd awoken from a nightmare but was actually still dreaming. This was her room, with its deep red tapestries adorned with golden trees and tiny blackbirds hanging on the walls. This was her bed, with its light petal pink curtains draped around the 4 cherry oak pillars. She looked around her room again, at the many mirrors held in beautifully antique gold frames of various sizes. Yes, everything was as it should be. She was safe. That was what her mother always said to her when she woke up startled, wasn't it? "Look, you're in your own room. You're safe, my little bird." But the shadows of this nightmare remained. She could still feel the looming danger of something pursuing her as she searched the dark corners of her room, hoping she wasn't still dreaming. "I need to speak with my mother." Snow had to tell her about the other part of her dream. It was a new nightmare, one that reminded her of a story her mother had told her when she was very small. The story of the dragon witch who put a young girl to sleep. Why do witches always put young girls to sleep in their stories? Snow White's own story was very similar. Her mother had put her to sleep, but there were many years past, so long ago that Snow rarely thought of it. The dragon witch had been plaguing Snow White's dreams for many nights. That much she knew. But the actual events of the bad dream always escaped her upon her waking. All she remembered was the forest from her childhood. She'd been trying to capture her memory of the dragon witch dream so she could share it with her mother, but it was a little forgotten word, and a name she couldn't grasp. Snow knew this dream was important. She knew this nightmare held meaning. And now that she finally remembered it, her mother wasn't there. Where is she? Snow White dressed quickly in one of her favorite gowns. It was a red velvet dress decorated with embroidered silver birds and shiny black beads that sparkled in the light. She sat at her vanity looking at her mirror as she brushed her thick black hair, brilliantly streaked with silver, at each of her temples. She watched the curls bounce back with each stroke, before tying the red ribbon to keep her hair from falling into her round, pale face and large eyes. Snow never thought much about how she looked, and that day wasn't any different, but she thought it was sweet the king always said she hadn't changed over the years. Though she had to admit, she did have a few more lines around her eyes and mouth when she smiled, which was most of the time. Snow was so accustomed to seeing her mother's face in her mirror, it was strange to see her own. She hadn't realized how much she took her mother's company for granted, how lonely she would feel without her, especially now that her children had grown and were living in their own kingdoms, and her beloved was away on a diplomatic mission. "You look beautiful, little bird. You always do." Snow White looked up with a gleaming smile at the reflection of her mother in the mirror. "Mama, where were you? I have to tell you about my dream." "I know your dreams, my darling. I've been trying to find the dark fairy. I have to warn her." The old queen, Grimhilda, replied. "Is she the dragon witch?" Snow White asked. Grimhilda laughed. "Yes, my bird. The very one." "Is your old story coming true, then?" Snow White asked, confused. "I don't understand." "I'm not sure I do either, darling. The story I told you so many years ago was in a book your cousin gave to me. I think they may have written it, and I'd very much like to see it now. Do you have it somewhere among your things by chance? Snow White knew exactly where it was. It was in a place she didn't like going. It's not in my chambers. It's in one of the trunks in the attic, packed away with the rest of your possessions. Are you brave enough to go up there alone, my bird? It's very important that you do. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to keep up to date on all the new magic. Have a magical day.